shooting death of a Florida teen ignites national outrage and scrutiny on matters of race and the law. Today,
it is absolutely imperative that we investigate every aspect of this.
The Trayvon Martin case with Florida Governor Rick Scott, then health care, Republicans, and 2012 with senior White House advisor David Plouffe, Senator Lindsey Graham on this stubborn 2012 Republican primary season, and the meaning of the Santorum victory in Louisiana with two Washington bureau chiefs, USA Today's Susan Page and Mike Duffy from Time Magazine. I'm Candy Crowley, and this is State of the Union. First, though, our news of the day. Former Vice President Dick Cheney is recovering from heart transplant surgery at a Northern Virginia hospital. Joining me now for the latest from the hospital is CNN's Athena Jones. Athena, do we have any idea how long he might be there?
Well, certainly we understand that most heart patients who go through a surgery like this end up staying in the hospital for about a month, certainly several weeks while they're under observation. I should mention, though, that Vice President Cheney at 71 is on the upper end of the age range of people who get heart transplants, at least according to the International Society of Heart and Lung Implantation. Most people who get these transplants are in their 50s, and so his age could play into how long he's kept here under observation, Candy.
And certainly, this is not the first time, as we all know, that he's been hospitalized, maybe the most serious, as far as I can tell, but nonetheless, he's had a long history.
Absolutely. He's had 5 heart attacks over the course of his life. The first one back in June of 1978 when he was just 37 years old. We know that in 2001 he had a pacemaker implanted, and he was also hospitalized more recently back in June of 2010 when he had what's called a left ventricular assist device, or an LVAD, which is put in as part of in-stage heart failure treatment. It helps the heart pump, and it's the kind of device that's used as a precursor often to this sort of heart transplant, Candy.
Athena Jones covering the Dick Cheney heart transplant story. Thank you so much. On to our show. George Zimmerman, the neighborhood watch captain in Sanford, Florida, told authorities he acted in self-defense when he shot and killed unarmed teenager Trayvon Martin, bringing into focus a 7-year-old Florida law that reads in part, a person has no duty to retreat and has the right to stand his or her ground and meet force with force, including deadly force, if he or she reasonably believes it is necessary to do so to prevent death or great bodily harm. Since Stand Your Ground was enacted in Florida, the annual number of Florida cases found to be justifiable homicide has nearly tripled from an average 12 a year to 33. This week, Florida Governor Rick Scott appointed a new prosecutor to oversee the Martin case and created a task force to review the Stand Your Ground law. And joining me now for an exclusive interview, Governor Rick Scott from Florida. Thank you, sir, for joining us.
Boy, don't you just feel your heart goes out to that family? I had the opportunity to meet with the parents Thursday night to let them know that I appointed a new state attorney and introduced them to the Florida Department of Law Enforcement agents that are working on the case. And you're just, your heart goes out to them because you just, no family ever imagines this could ever happen to their child.
Yeah, and you must have, with the Stand Your Ground law, which may or may not apply to this case, but certainly you must have had questions about the state law before you appointed this task.
Well, what you want to make sure is you want to make sure that everybody feels comfortable with public safety in our state. And so, as you know, I put together a task force led by my lieutenant governor, who's African American, and I'm going to have different elected officials appoint individuals, but we'll look at all of it. But the first thing we're going to do is really do a thorough investigation to see what happened here. No one can imagine this happened to their family. We've got to find out exactly what's going to happen. The Florida Department of Law Enforcement State Attorney Angela Corey is going to do a great job knowing what happened and make sure justice prevails. We have to do that.
Governor, does this look like a race thing to you?
Well, there's nothing I know about that. I know we'll find that. I think we'll find that out in the investigation. Clearly, you hope it's never the case. But we'll look at all these things and find out what happens. There'll be a thorough investigation. Justice will prevail. We've got to make sure there's justice for Mr. Martin's family, and also justice for, George Zimmerman.
Let me ask you, one of the things that one of the criticisms has been, it took more than a month for anyone to really notice this case, and that includes you, because this week was when you appointed switched attorneys and when you appointed the task force. Why did it take you this long?
Well, first off, I don't have the authority to appoint a new state attorney unless the existing state attorney withdraws. So
you could have pushed them out sooner.
Yeah. Well, everything you do in life, I mean, I'd love it to do things faster. And you get more information and you see about problems faster. So I'd love to do things faster. The right thing happened here. The Florida Department of Law Enforcement will do a thorough investigation. They're known for that. Angela Corey is a very good state attorney who I've known for a long time. She'll do a great job. And finally, you mentioned George Zimmerman, the man who admitted to police that he shot, claims it was self-defense. There are various things that tell us that was not the case. There have been death threats against him. Is there does the state feel that it needs to protect him while this case moves on, or do you know where he is? What do you know about Zimmerman? Well, you've got to make sure there's due process. You've got to make sure there's due process for somebody that's accused of a crime. You've got to make sure they're safe. He has not been accused. You've got to make sure there's, no one feels uncomfortable, that's not been accused of a crime. So if he feels unsafe, then we'll make sure that, nothing happens to him. Has there been any request of that sort? Not at the governor's office. Not that you know of. Okay. Do you expect charges in this case? I'm not sure. We've got to wait and see what the facts. Let me move you on to the state of Florida and a Republican ad for you that caught our eye that's running in the state.
Governor Rick Scott's cutting the red tape, getting government off the backs of businesses. Over a dozen new pro-business initiatives passed by Governor Scott and Republican legislators.
Okay, let me tell you the political interpretation in Washington of this spot, and that is you've got 2 years before you actually would run for re-election. Right. So that the reason this spot is out there is that there is a worry that your approval ratings will be a drag on the Republican ticket this year in the presidential race. Would you like to disabuse me of that? Well, I think what my job is to help the state get back to work, and that's why I ran on. And that's, if you look at what we've done we've had 2 sessions so far. We've reduced taxes. We've reduced regulation, and the state's getting busier again. Clearly, whoever wins this fall in all races, whether it's a presidential race in Florida or in our other races, all of our House and Senate is up, is going to depend on a lot about how they perceive the governor and how they perceive what that talks about what we've done and the Republican Florida legislature, because we have majority in both. So why did you run that ad? Well, to get our message out. We have unemployment's dropped considerably. We're at a 3-year low. We're talking to companies all the time about getting them to come to Florida. This week, Embraer is adding a research design center in Florida. 7-Eleven's adding a lot of stores in the Jacksonville area came back. They haven't been there for 20 years. It's part of telling our message that Florida is absolutely open for business. We should add that your numbers actually have gone up in the approval rating. You're still sort of below water, as they say, but nonetheless, they've improved. I wanted to ask you about the unemployment rate. It is the lowest it's been in 3 years, 9.6, which isn't anything to brag home about, but nonetheless, it is lower than it's been in 3 years. But then this month, job creation fell, like 36,000 jobs lost in Florida, which is the biggest monthly loss of any state. What happened? Well, the numbers don't make sense to me. We have 24 workforce boards, and we track every month how many jobs they filled. They filled 35,000 jobs. We're when I came into office, 568,000 people were on unemployment. Now it's about 360. So we're making progress every month. So I never those numbers. We dropped 0.3% unemployment that month and lost jobs. So I'm not sure. I haven't figured that out yet. But I assume that February will be different, and we'll see what happens over the year because we had a great 2011. Let me ask you, I want to move you to the Republican race just to you haven't endorsed anyone publicly yet. Do you think it's time? We saw Jeb Bush come out and say, Mitt Romney, time to bring the party together. Do you feel that it's time for this Republican race to end? I think it's great. We're learning more about these candidates every day. I think the race is great. I think that if it goes on, we're going to learn more about all the candidates that are up there. It creates a lot of interest. It looks like we'll have a nominee by the time of the convention, which of course will be in the great state of Florida.
But you know, I think it's great. It's great they're having a race.
But you know, all of the figures sort of run against that. When you look at what has happened to Mitt Romney and to Newt Gingrich and to Rick Santorum over the time, it has been that independents, who are quite valuable in Florida, as you know,
very valuable,
are walking away from these candidates at this point, that this has become damaging to the image of the Republican Party because it's been so fierce. And that the theory being that there has to be some time for making up this image deficit.
You know what I think? I think the election is going to be about one issue. Tell me what the job picture is going to be. Whoever has a plan that the American public believes is going to. I won my race because they believed I had a jobs plan. That's why I run. I won. That's who's going to win this fall. Whoever has when you go to the ballot, you're going to say, who's going to make sure that there's a greater chance I'm going to have a job next year. That's who's going to win. And I believe the Republican nominee will be that. But you know, whoever. That's what they're going to have to do. I'm glad that now they are talking about jobs. I don't think they talked about jobs enough in the early primaries. There was a lot of other issues. This is about jobs. In our state, it's education for your child, it's jobs, and keep the cost of living low. That's what's important.
So can I just extrapolate from that? We are seeing improving economic figures in your state, but nationwide, that certainly is going to benefit the president this fall.
Absolutely. But in the end, it's going to be, tell me what you're going to do to make sure that our country is the #1 place in the world to build businesses. That's how you get a job. I'm doing that in Florida. We're going to make sure Florida is the #1 place in this country if you want to build a business.
At least I know you'll have activity in August.
You're going to be busy.
Convention. Thank you so much, Governor Rick Scott.
Thanks,
we
Candy.
appreciate your time.